Your source for all things Texas Tech. This is the Ask Level podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Ask Level podcast. Alongside Chris Level, I'm Chois Woodman. This podcast, as usual, brought to you by our friends at Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
Chris, another week, another couple of wins for Texas Tech basketball. Vastly different games, though. I mean, we're talking as polar opposite of games as possible. You play a home game to double overtime that felt like an NBA-ish game. Both teams just could not miss. You see a lot of offense as the Red Raiders take down Arizona State. And then the opposite happens in Stillwater, a place that has not been kind to Texas Tech, but the Red Raiders crush the Oklahoma State Cowboys and have one of those rare days where Tech is able to kind of, get some separation and really not have a stressful day at all in Stillwater. So we'll dive into those games. Got several questions from the audience we'll get to. How's
is somebody a bit under the weather? Is somebody if your voice is coming off like the old Oklahoma State performance over the weekend, like
ouch.
Pistol Pete was a bit woozy.
Yeah.
On Saturday, and that's kind of what your voice. Are you struggling? You gonna make it?
I jumped in with everybody else and fighting something around here. So
I'm kidding. Yeah, everybody's been dealing with
it.
So.
I sound a lot worse than I feel. I really don't feel bad.
No, it's fine.
Voice
yeah,
box,
stay healthy out there, everybody, and stay hydrated and suck down that vitamin C and all the stuff. You're just. I think you've graduated from I think you're pretty good to I think you're pretty legit here. I think the metrics, the wins, the different ways you are doing this, and because you've plucked from the win tree all different kinds of like, we'll go defense, we'll go ugly, we'll outlast the team double overtime, we'll show up and just beat the out of somebody like I mean it's like you kind of done all the things that a good team does, and you've showed up and you've been really consistent. And the thing is, because Grant is real big on pointing this out, and he tells his kids this all the time, we haven't played our best yet together. They're still trying to achieve a level of, but what I would say is, based on what we have seen, is if you stay healthy, if you continue to rebound and then play defense with the improvement that we've seen, you're good enough on offense to compete with anybody out there. But it's those other things. You need health. You need to be able to handle your business or maintain a level of competitiveness on the glass. But then your defense, because what people don't, I think, truly appreciate is, we've talked a lot about what you don't have or what you aren't. Not the biggest, don't have a ton of length.
Yeah.
You could argue you don't have a ton of depth, although some would go, that's crazy talk. You have tons of depth, but you get what I'm saying.
Sure.
There was supposed to be a ninth piece of this rotation. You'd love to have another meaningful piece that you could really trust that was experienced in all these things, but that's not what you have. But their ability to really pay attention to the little things in a game and how to take things away from a team, how to play certain angles on defense, or understanding like the scouting report or the subtle decisions you have to make quickly on a possession. Because just to give you an example, like against Oklahoma State, they largely it was a game where, okay, don't foul them because they score and make more free throws than anybody in the league, and that's one of the ways they have to score because they struggle otherwise. So like let's not foul and help them. But then here's what they're going to do. And if you watch that game, you just kind of watch. There's somebody there, or there's somebody taking this away. And Oklahoma State really didn't. Okay, now what? We don't know what to do. Okay, what's
Yeah,
plan B, C, or D? And you have dudes on your team that can make those plays in those scenarios. They don't, and a lot of teams don't.
yeah,
And I think that's what's been fun to watch is Grant gets way more fired up for, or there's a lot more of appreciation from his standpoint when those things are happening, as opposed to some three in transition when the crowd's going nuts that his team is making.
sure.
And he's a defensive guy, right?
Yeah,
And I think
yeah,
it's been fun to watch this team kind of improve tremendously as we've gone
very
along
much.
here. And in a difficult league with teams that are desperate and talent and athletic and depth and all this stuff. So
Yeah, it has been a lot of fun to see this team improve. I think you mentioned the depth or lack thereof. There's no or there's no lack of scoring depth on this team. And I think
no,
that's what's been impressive to see. You don't want to lose any of those bodies, but you've seen different guys do it on various nights. And JT Toppin, we can't get too far away without talking about him. I mean, the numbers he's putting up. What is it, 73 points this week? If he's not your Big 12 player of the week, the
then
system's
somebody should
broken.
storm the castle. Yeah,
It's
somebody
broken.
should find out where the Big 12 offices are, politely knock,
Yeah.
and ask to speak to somebody or write a letter. I
And
don't
then
know,
burn it
but
all
yeah,
down.
it's the most no-brainer Big 12
Sure.
player of the week in the history of the league, and the first time since he's done something that Keenan Evans, this is the last time a Red Raider did it, 30 plus points in back-to-back Big 12 games for the first time, and it's like since 17 and 18 when Keenan did it. And that
Good
year,
company.
and I will say to you, that particular year, if he doesn't hurt his toe in Waco, Texas,
Hmm.
he's going to go on to win the Player of the Year, and I think Texas Tech goes on to win the Big 12 regular season championship that year. But is JT Toppin in that same category? He might just be,
Maybe.
because who from Houston do you give it to? Juwan Roberts, Milo Suzon,
No.
LJ Cryer. They may take votes away from each other.
Sure.
I don't know. And it depends on what the next 2 to 3 weeks look like. But I mean, he's in the very short conversation here of first team all Big 12 types of guys. We'll see where it goes, but it's just worth pointing out. And the only reason I point it out is try to connect those dots between JT and Keenan then, because that's the conversation that Keenan Evans was in at the time.
Yeah, and Toppin, the first player this season in college basketball to have 30 and 10 point or 30 points, 10 rebounds in consecutive games. First in
Seems decent.
yeah, and he's the first in the Big 12 to do that since 2009, Blake Griffin. Other little nuggets, 73 points, 27 rebounds, and shooting over 74%. He's the first to do that in any D1 or the NBA this year. So it's pretty crazy the numbers that Toppin put up these last two games. And you needed every bit of it, obviously, against Arizona State, which was one of the crazier games I can remember as a Red Raider fan.
And I would say that if you've got tickets to one of the three remaining home games for
Yeah,
Texas Tech, like with some of the guys you are seeing, the West Virginia game is sold out. That'll come up this Saturday, and
yeah,
then you're going to turn right around and what is one would be one of the best home game opportunity type scenarios that I don't know technically will be on the line that night. It may be nothing, maybe a ton, whatever. It doesn't matter. But when Houston rolls around like 48 hours later, and then you've got one more against Colorado, which is a senior night. My point is that you want to see what a first round draft pick
yeah,
in a Red Raider uniform. I mean, you better get a glimpse because he's not going to be here next year. And with what Choice has basically just stated, I mean, these are all the reasons why. You better get a glimpse,
yeah.
and
This
you better
is
appreciate the weapon that you've got in a Texas Tech uniform because yeah, and that goes with Chance and D5 and a lot of Elijah Hawkins and Kerwin Walton and all that. It's just been
Sure.
a fun group, man. It's been a really fun group. And back on the Arizona State game though, this was a night when that's what I would say. I appreciate what the University of Houston has been able to do
Hmm.
because it's just extremely difficult to win and be consistent and manage all the stuff that comes with this deal. You're dealing with travel and injuries and kids being tired and being distracted, whatever. And there's a million reasons why teams like can show up one night and just lose. And you kind of had some reasons that night to go,
Yeah,
dude, we got a hand in their face. They're just banking them in. They're burying them from all over.
exactly.
The,
Yeah.
the kid got off the bus and he heaves it up. I mean, even the half court shot at halftime was going in by the student.
Yeah.
And yet you
Forgot
you
about that.
you you outlasted them. I don't want to say that like you beat them. I mean, you outlasted them. They finally blinked, and you were there to take advantage. But I mean, how many times did it look like it's just not your night? You're
Yeah.
right there, but
Yeah.
it's just not. I mean, some missed free throws, a banked in three, a timely bad turnover on your part, whatever. And yet you 111, 106. Damnedest game I've seen in a long time, man.
That's
I
wild.
mean, it was wild.
I mean,
And then you turn right around and you look like you kind of broke Arizona State. I mean, you broke them because
yeah,
Adam Miller, who had just come back from suspension,
sure.
so he's now been ejected and suspended or ejected, I guess, in back-to-back home games because they turned right around. And I'm thinking, okay, Arizona State can go one of two ways here. They can build off of this and like go, dude, we got a bunch of shot makers. We can go small. But Adam Miller shows up against TCU back in Tempe on a Saturday night, tells Kip Kissinger something off and right to his face, and it's like
Yeah.
Adam Miller, and they just cracked. I think you have culture, they don't. They were smiling and having fun and all this stuff, and I think they kind of got to the point of, dang, we didn't get a result. And now they just kind of, it's going to go the other way for them. I bet down the stretch, we'll see. But
Yeah. And they've got a ton of scoring talent, as
oh
Coach
yeah,
McCaslin talked about leading up to it. Just, I
it's
think,
crazy. Here's the thing that's crazy, Woodman, is that who Arizona State is UCF. And these are two of the
yeah,
teams that are at the bottom of the Big 12 standings. But they have a bunch of really good individual one-on-one players. That's
sure.
not a good matchup for you.
No.
You play much better against teams with more of a structure, or more of a system, or whatever, and you can. But when it gets down to like kind of one-on-one, and then that night, I mean, you were in a pretty good spot on some of these possessions, and it just didn't matter. They're just heaving them up from everywhere, from different sources, and all that. The big fella not playing for Arizona State that night ultimately hurt you
Yeah.
because they went small, and
I
you have a
agree.
hard time
Yep.
matching up with that. But that's exactly what happened against UCF, which is turning out to be one of your worst losses of the season because UCF, the wheels have
Unfortunately,
come off, and yeah,
man.
yeah. So anyway, it's crazy, but that also may be why you're here. I think you learned a
I
lot from that loss, and you got the slack yanked out of you by your head coach, and you've been better for it ever since.
It's hard to argue that because you have been a different team, especially defensively. There's a couple of anomalies to that, but you've had 6 games where you've held teams in the 50s in Big 12 play. 6 of them. That's crazy that you've been able to do that. Because, I mean, yes, Oklahoma State's 2 of those, but K-State, who's one of the hottest teams in the country, is one of those. And heck,
Yeah,
Arizona's another one of them.
was until they showed up to Provo.
One of
I,
those,
I,
yeah.
I was I was worried about the old Wildcats for that one, boy, because that's BYU sneaky, and
That's
that environment is really tough. And I thought, oh, they may run out. And sure enough, man, it was like what were they down by like 20 at halftime or something? But
yeah.
Jerome Tang got teed up, and the wheels kind of
How about
you know
us? I mean,
they blew another tire, so they need to change that tire and get back on the road again.
it's a pretty nice little record Texas Tech has, including a win in Provo on the road. 6-1. I mean, that's unheard of. in Big 12 play.
Yes. So at worst, you're going to be 6-4 on the road. If you were to lose the other three opportunities, you still have
Yeah.
an opportunity. Obviously, depending on when you're listening to this, there's an opportunity in Fort Worth,
Right.
and then Lawrence, Kansas, and then Tempe, Arizona.
Yeah.
And if you can win two of the three, or heaven forbid, three of the three, this is an all-timer
Sure.
like type scenario. This just doesn't happen. And you're also, I will tell you too, it's also an all-timer from this standpoint. This may be the only year you ever play 20 conference games again. I don't want to say never, but they're going back to 18 next year.
Pretty
That is
certain
going
on
to
it?
happen.
Okay.
Yeah, that's going to happen, and that'll change the schedule in November, December a little bit.
Hmm.
And I don't know how we got to this point, but I think there's a lot of being on the same page about let's go back to 18. And I don't know, part of it I'm not as much of a fan of. Wish there was a different way to do it. I kind of like it.
It's been
I think,
fun. Yeah.
yeah, it gives you one more quality home game for sure.
Yep.
I liked some of the breaks that you had in November and December that was a little more spread out.
Yep.
And I mean, I'd rather have two more conference games than two more games versus Bethune-Cookman
Agreed.
or something.
Yep.
So we'll see kind of if you beef up that or whatever. But so this is going to be a one-off legitimately. I mean, and so but all the coaches seem to be on the same page in that
Okay.
I thought the TV folks would come in and go, no, man, we want the inventory.
I know
We
this is
paid you
great
for
stuff.
this.
Yeah.
Deal with it. Yeah. So, but because then the questions are, I don't mean to sidetrack you, but then the questions become, okay, you're only going to have 18. Well, how exactly are you doing the schedule for everybody? Because then when you take two games away, it really factors in on kind of
Absolutely.
who you get twice
Yeah.
or whatever. Because I still think there's a component of we want everybody to see everybody, but then there's fewer
Hmm.
that you'll see twice. And if you get the wrong draw there, that's not fair.
Yeah. It
Um,
becomes very unequal there. So
yeah,
it's,
yeah. So we'll
yeah.
see.
Well, that's where we'll start with the questions. We got quite a few questions, so let's dive in.
Okay.
Someone did ask. This one is from Jason. It says, "Level, are you concerned about the long Big 12 schedule and its effects on Texas Tech and other Big 12 teams in March?"
I mean, yes and no. I think you could worry yourself to death on a lot of these things, and you could get in your own head about. I really wondered or worried about how much that mentally and physically the Arizona State game had taken out of you with a fairly quick turnaround to going to Oklahoma State. Is that you end up late on a Wednesday night, you have a Thursday, then you wake up Friday and you're on the road to Stillwater. You're going to play early on Saturday, and then it's like,
Yeah.
like catch your breath. We need our legs and all this and that, and then you go out and you beat Oklahoma State by 38 points. I would say that potentially it's a concern when you're leaning on some of the minutes that your guys are, but that's what was fun about the Oklahoma State game is you got to back off a few of
Yeah.
those guys a
True.
bit. And now you're about to, there's been some portions of the schedule which have been a grind, which depending on again, when you're listening to this,
Right.
the Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, it's pretty squeezed, which is what you're still in the midst of right now, as you'll be in Fort Worth on the Tuesday night. But then there's a bit of a reprieve, although it will be Saturday,
Yeah, you
Monday
got the big Monday
uh,
game. Yeah.
on the turnaround. But then it's like then you look up on Monday when it's over with, and you get a lot of rest before you go to Lawrence
Yeah.
and away. So you just try to find little pockets of when you can kind of back off of your kids, and I think that's one of the secrets to what Grant is doing this year. He hasn't tried to get in his team's way from the standpoint of grinding on them
Hmm.
on a day to day. He knows when to back off. There's some trust there.
Yeah.
And then I think in games he hasn't tried to, I guess the right word is overcoach him. And there's some trust there because it's easy to do.
Right.
But yeah, injury and being worn down is always a concern. But uh, last thing before we move on is this is one of these teams to where if you were to, like you're getting close here to where you're kind of sealing up
Hmm.
a top four seed in the conference tournament, which means It
Double
means there'll
bye.
be 18. Yeah, yeah. It means that 8 teams, before you even tee it up, there will be at least 8 teams that'll have shown up to Kansas City and are done
Yeah,
before you even play.
it's crazy.
It is crazy to think like, hey man, they were here, never saw them. But if you get to that point, like if you were to lose on that Thursday or even the semis on Friday, it's not the
Mhm.
worst thing.
Right.
Just to kind of get a few more days of prep and treatment and
Yeah.
whatever else. So not the worst thing, but I guess I'm not. And I've lived through it, and luckily we haven't had too many travel issues because that can derail this thing in a heartbeat, something totally out of your control.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen too much that I'm like, I kind of like the 20, if I'm being honest.
Yep. All right.
They didn't ask me though.
More that ties into kind of what we've been talking about level. This one's from Matt. Says, I saw Vegas has Tech as the eighth best, or with the eighth best odds to win the national championship right now. Do you view Tech as a top 10 team nationally?
Yes, absolutely. Every metric you want to get into, and again, it all comes down to matchups. And here's the thing. The hardest portion of what you're about to have to do is still out there in the distance. It's very difficult to win games in the NCAA tournament. It doesn't mean you can't show up and hammer somebody, but it's a 40-minute pop, man. And if that's the one night where the shots don't go in or somebody fouls out or whatever, but you have, and so it may come down to a matchup or whatever, but you have a lot of, if at the time we are talking right now, if this is the group that you have going on the road to the tournament and everybody's largely healthy and whatnot, you you
Mhm.
you should make some noise. I mean, you're getting close
Yeah.
to where if you're not in the second weekend, you're going to feel some disappointment, which is wild to me because
I
there are really good teams every year
yeah.
that get bounced early or that don't make it to the second weekend. This is the beauty of the NCAA tournament, why we love it so much.
Yeah. I think we're there,
Uh,
right? I mean, if you're not based on what you have with this squad, this much talent, what you've shown to this point in the season, if you don't make it to the second weekend, it would be at least
well,
somewhat of a disappointment.
okay, define somewhat. That's the key. And then two, what do you look like
Oh, sure.
at the time that because
Right.
there's yeah,
I'm
but
saying what we know and in this moment right now without any
because
injury or anything.
for all
Yeah.
we know, you could hit a skid or going, okay, well now this is a bit different, but yeah, at the time you and I were talking, you're rolling and feeling pretty good and healthy and
Right.
all the
Right.
stuff. So knock on wood. So
Or you could
I'm not
draw, another NC State in the first round that makes it to the Final Four.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and that's why the more you can stack them,
Yeah.
the more you help your situation from geography. Because right now you're looking at
Sure.
Wichita or Denver; those are the two closest. And which it's not close, but that's the closest they can offer up. That's where the first round sites are.
Denver's
That's what
drivable in a day for sure.
one and Wichita is
Wichita is
too.
too. Yeah, either
Yeah,
one.
I mean, so if you can get one of those two places, you can get some, whatever. And then, yeah, I'd rather play a really good conference winner, mid-major type than I
Hmm.
would in some cases like the really hot Power Four school that has a lot of talent and all those things that's maybe underachieved all year. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
And you got the latter in Pittsburgh and it didn't work out. But I'd rather do like those couple years when you play like Utah Valley. I
right.
forgot the Western Kentucky or whatever it was. I can't remember. Northern Kentucky, I think one year and yeah.
So we got on Saturday. We've kind of brushed past this a little bit, but we got the first committee top 16
Uh-huh.
seeds, and Texas Tech slotted at 13. One of our questions asked, "What does it take for Texas Tech to lock into a 3 seed or better?" So what do you need the rest of the way?
Well, you're going to need to continue. You can't. I don't think you need to have any more bad losses.
Hmm.
And this is tricky. I guess bad losses technically on paper right now would probably be at home versus West Virginia, in Tempe versus Arizona State, I don't think it's a bad loss at Fort Worth. They've won 4 of 5. They're 500 in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Technically, if you're a top team in the country, they may consider that a bad loss. But
Right.
and then obviously Houston and Kansas, Colorado at home would be a bad one. I
Hmm.
don't factor anything in Kansas City as a good or bad or whatever to this
Sure.
point. But um, yeah, I mean it's you're already at 20 wins. I mean, I think some of this depends on what else everybody else is doing, I should
Right.
say. It's all what I've seen from some Tech fans is that is triggered some folks is that there's Kansas is still in the same conversation with you, and they're
Hmm.
very and you have to
That was
understand
before this weekend's loss at Utah too.
it was, but some of it still doesn't. Their non-conference was so good
It was. Yeah.
and loaded with the losses that they got weren't bad losses because these were and you just don't really have anything to offer up there. And I think that's where because the committee's job, they are saying to you, we judge a game on December 15th the same as we do on February the 15th. It doesn't
Right.
matter. And Kansas had some legit dubs at that time of year, and you just didn't. There's not a whole lot there. So what you're doing is you're making up for it, the damage you're doing in the league and away
Right.
from home.
Right.
And you have one of the top wins in the sport in Houston,
No
Texas
doubt.
this year. So, but yeah, it's gonna continue to take more to stay on that 3 or 4 line. Yeah, you end up winning some more road games, plural, and
Yeah.
maybe beat Houston at home and do what you're supposed to between West Virginia and Colorado. Yeah, I mean you'll be in a good neighborhood when that bracket comes out, surely. Because this is the committees.
Yes, it
This
is.
is what they're telling you.
This
They have
is yeah.
five of the 16 were from the Big 12. They are respecting your league. You still got some meat left on your bone here, and there's some of these games like you're not going to get punished for losing to Houston at home, but man, the rewards.
Oh yeah.
You sweep the Cougs in a year where they may win the regular season league title.
Let's
Yeah, you
go.
take a page out of Coach McGuire's playbook from the fall, like when you're beating the teams playing for the league championship.
Yeah.
God, that would be frustrating too. But
Sure.
yeah,
All right. Here's another one. Level. This one's kind of a fun one. It says this one is from Kaysen. It says Tech has won in so many different ways this year. We've talked about that.
the win
Level,
tree.
level. What
Yeah.
is your favorite game that you've got to call so far this year?
Okay, so oh man, there's a lot of different ones here. Like
A
the
whole lot, of
the most stressful one was the Arizona State game.
course. Yeah.
I had a lot of fun in this past one just because it was fun. It was no stress, and you were just, it's like the 3-point party you were having. Everybody was invited, and then JT's just doing his
Yeah.
crazy thing. And it was legitimately just fun. Plus, I got to see my daughter up there, and she was rooting for her dad
Hard to beat that. Yeah.
and all the stuff. Like I checked every box you could imaginable there in Stillwater over the weekend. The Houston one, like, is kind of an easier answer, but I was so like,
Angry.
yeah,
I mean, I think every Tech fan that watches that game, you're fuming, and that's
yeah,
what made you want it even more. I mean,
yeah. But that one is, yeah, that one was something.
yeah.
But yeah, I honestly, I mean, you set a record for largest road margin this past Saturday. And
Hmm.
so in terms of like fun, was it the most rewarding? Was it the biggest result or the most meaningful result? No. But maybe most fun, that one maybe just because
Okay.
you set a school record for 16 made threes. And so from the broadcaster standpoint, those games are really fun to call.
Sure. Sure.
The Arizona State game was just like, oh gosh, how are we doing this? And so I can't say that I was having fun because I was like, oh boy, like oh they heaved in another one, and you're thinking like, damn man, our pets heads are falling off. Like we can't, like where's the duct tape? And can we sell something to little Johnny there?
Yeah.
Pretty bird, pretty bird. Yeah,
Hey,
I don't
I'll
know why
sign
I
me up
just
anytime we
I
get a
I
Dumb and
don't
Dumber reference.
I don't know why I just went that route,
I love it.
but I did. So yeah, I maybe I took a long way of answering it, but maybe it was not to be recent there, but maybe because of the reasons I laid out, it would be that one. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun with this team, and I'll add this to you. I would hope that my most fun broadcast has yet to come.
Let's go.
So let's think along those lines
Oh
there.
man, I think there's a lot of potential here for sure.
Yeah.
Um, okay, level. Let's get one more in. We have a football question, but we'll hold on to that one for next time. Make this one an
Okay.
all basketball pod. This one came from our YouTube comments from our previous episode. It says, "Is Chris saying there's no chance D5 or Toppin return next season? I guarantee NIL money can compete with second round NBA." And that's where Toppin is now. Now, do remember this was before these
Yeah.
past two games. I don't think we're having the same
No,
conversation.
he's mocked in every first round NBA draft that I have seen. I
Yeah,
think that yeah, I mean yeah, I'm not saying you don't like try, but I think those guys. JT came here with the strong idea that this would be a one and done situation, and really I think you've we'll see how it ends up, but I don't think that's a possibility there, and I think D5 is in the same category if I'm being just brutally honest. Here's your problem too. If you want to have those conversations, if they want to even flirt or the way the rules are going to be set up, at least for this year, it's a
hmm
bit, the timing is not in your favor because last year, JT was able to go through the process, get all the info, and
Yep.
then kind of make a decision, and you kind of were in a position where you could wait. Okay. Right now, you have got to have agreements and contracts signed. I think it's before April the 7th. You can't allow them to go through this process, or they're simply going to, you know, they could have nothing to return to. But you also, in the
Right.
meanwhile, could have watched every portal candidate that you wanted to go, and it could be picked clean as you let them
Sure.
play out. Like it's a big time gamble. So that also factors into this. But if you're asking me my opinion, I don't think that Darion Williams or JT Toppin will play for or in college next year. As tough as that is, I think, but I think that they will now better chance with D5 than JT. But JT's a first round draft pick. I'd be shocked if, and that's what the NBA folks are saying. I think he's done everything to this point on the floor to suggest that. So, but
He may
Darion
have played
Williams,
he may have played himself into a lottery pick in the last
I
few
mean,
games too.
potentially.
Yeah.
I have seen 13th. I've seen 19th.
Yeah.
You know, and so we'll see. But D5, I don't want to totally rule that out. But the
Sure.
tricky thing is, I think he really wants to go through the process, and so this would need to be. It's a slippery slope and a tricky game that you would potentially be playing there that could have zero payoff for you. Because
Yeah.
if you agree to play it,
Yeah.
you could get hosed and left with oh no, what do we do now? You
Right.
know, kind of deal. So
Yep. Understandable. So two games this week, level. A road trip to Fort Worth, and then come back home against West Virginia. Neither of these easy, obviously, but mm, I mean, if you want to stay in the Big 12 title conversation, you got to win them both. You want to keep up with the three seed line and better. Two wins goes a long way this week.
yeah, and I mean it's going to be really difficult.
Sure.
Houston is not helping you there. That's just much respect to them.
Yeah,
They are just not blinking,
they
and
good.
yet yeah they are. They absolutely are. Different guy on a different night. Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, that's right, and they're very well coached. But yeah, we'll worry about. Hey, and I hope to see if you watch or listen to this particular podcast. I hope that to see you in Cowtown
Yeah.
on a Tuesday night. If you're in the Metroplex, you can get tickets to this game. Your team will need it, and you know they've kind of removed the old rules in place that the previous athletic director had on keeping Tech faithful or
Yeah.
other fan bases out, and so yeah, it's not cheap. But if you want to see a potential first round draft pick and your guys go at it, man. They could certainly use some Raider power that particular night. So, and then yeah, back at home on a Saturday. It's been a minute. I've spent many a Friday night recently away from home, so it'll be nice to be home on a weekend on occasion and not get home at like midnight or 3:30 or 10 o'clock, which is I guess the last three Saturday nights that I've had. So it's like
Man.
gone Friday, gone Saturday, wake up Sunday, try to recoup and all that. So it'll be nice to be home on a weekend.
Well, we're looking forward to having you home. We will see you at the arena.
Are you? Yeah. I'll show up and you just invite me over. We'll have drinks or something. Okay.
Okay.
Woodman?
Well, I was just going to
Okay.
come say hi down at the arena, but if you want to come over,
I
come on.
got you.
Come on.
I'm kidding.
We'll
I'm kidding.
celebrate wins any way you want to. Hopefully,
Yeah.
more of those coming this week. Level, great stuff as usual. We'll do it again next week.
Hey, I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you for fighting through this with your voice. Thank you, the folks at Cantex Roofing, and enjoy what you're doing on our hardwood right now. This is
Mhm.
rare. This is hard to get done. There's more to do, but yeah, enjoy it because you've got a fun little product you're trying out there right now, and more good times ahead, hopefully.
Well said. That's Chris Level. I'm Choice Woodman. You've been tuned into the Ask Level podcast brought to you by Double T 97.3.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.